Finally get to the back of this tractor to finish out these fenders. You guys have probably seen some nasty gaps down here. Just went ahead and fabricated a plate, put it in there. These are 1/2-inch pieces, so matches the frame. So that side's done too. So these fenders, this older design, the newer ones had a plate that holds this fender, a nice big flat iron that goes along the inside, and that keeps the fender from doing this. See it flexing? So we can't do that because we need all the space we can get for those big tires, so we can't put that in there. So what we came up with is we're gonna use some angle iron and some flat iron, and we're gonna lay a 2x3 angle iron. It's gonna butt up here, come straight down to a corner, then come over and square this or triangle this in. And then we're gonna lay a flat iron on the top here that'll butt down and weld to that. So it'll be nice welded all along here, all along there, and then all along the backside in there. And that'll create a triangle, a tube on the end there that'll be solid. And then on the joint here, we'll wrap this, reinforce this corner here, and on the inside too, because we will have some room able to do the inside. And that should really lock this up so it doesn't sit there and flex, because that's what slowly breaks these welds out, is that constant vibrating. This side's not quite fully together yet. You can just see how much that thing moves all the way up. So we're hoping that tightens it up. Only way we'll know is by putting some iron to it, so that's what I'm gonna do. $42.25 on this side and 41.5 on the other side.
Hey Nick, look how perfect that is.
Oh wow, that came out really good. 42.25 and 41 and actually 3/4, 41 3/4.
Yeah. So I was curious, and I figured it would be a little too long. What I created, the drive shaft, nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. It's where I want it to be. This center drive shaft, the one that's collapsible, is not meant to be on this tractor. It never was built for this tractor. It actually came with the transmissions and engine off of some kind of massive mining truck, okay? It was a huge blessing that the people that we bought the transmission engine from had these, and they're like, well, we're just gonna throw them away. You want them? And I was like, yeah, I'll take them. Never know what I'll use them for, because I was thinking this tractor was gonna come with a pair of these. Well, when we got this tractor, they're missing, and they couldn't find them, and so these happen to be pretty much the exact same thing we needed. Just one little problem. A little long. Literally, maybe a 1/2 inch long. So what I'm thinking is I pulled it apart, and I'm thinking I'm gonna cut some of these splines down. Instead of cutting this right here and shortening that tube and welding it back together and balancing it and all that, I'm gonna cut the splines down. There are plenty of splines for it, so it's not like it's gonna take away any torque and it's not gonna shear. It'll be fine. Because this only collapses about, I think I figured it out up there, about 1 3/4 inches. So that's not that much. But I just need like a 1/2 inch. And if I cut it, put it back together, and it fits, that's a lot easier than trying to cut the tube down and re-weld it. What do you guys think? Should I do it? There's no turning back. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. This is not a good thing to do. If it works though, it's a good thing to do. Okay, let's try this. I ended up going with the 3/4 inch cut. So I trimmed off 3/4 inch. Is that gonna make a difference on that? Absolutely not. And the reason why I went with that is we still have this short, let's see, where is it over here? Off the 5 1/4 Big Bud. This is the section that I'm trying to copy right here. So I made it just slightly shorter than that one to be on the safe side, because the thing about Big Bud is they built a tractor with whatever was on the shelf, and nothing is really all the same. So I can't really go off of that one being completely true with this one, even though it's the same frame. I figured I'll just cut it slightly shorter and then we'll be good. All right, let's clean this up. Let's go try it. Oh yeah, we got a little bit of play, not a lot, but we got a little bit of play, so it's not bottoming out. It's actually pulling it that way a little bit, so we're good. I took a gamble and it worked out. I'm happy. And that saved me a tremendous amount of work and a lot of time of going this route. I mean, ideally, it's not the right, it's not the best way to do it, but it worked. So it makes me feel so good knowing that this is all together on the bottom. And I just got to work on the top, make sure that that's good. Yeah. Oh, that feels good. It feels really good to have that done. Man, I was really losing sleep over that too. There's a lot of things I've been losing sleep over. I'm gonna go look at my throwing star. You guys wanna see my throwing star? That's actually pretty cool. I'm gonna keep that. And then if Nick gets out of line and starts to misbehave, I'll let him know the throwing star's coming his way.
I jumped ahead working on back of these fenders. Finished that side out mostly. I got some cleaning up doing the welds and whatnot, and I got a cap this corner right here. As you can see, we basically boxed it in, and then we're gonna gusset that corner with a nice chunk of heavy flat iron right there. So that'll brace this piece, and that'll hopefully add strength to this fender to keep it from going brrrr and shaking a bunch. So let's finish welding this one up. Beautiful. All right, well, besides a little bit of touch-ups with the grinder, because they say grinder and paint make you the welder you ain't, so we all know what's happening here. But there was some Bondo originally on this bud. I've been finding it in places, so they Bondoed a lot of these spots to make them look nice and round. So that just gave me a perfect excuse to do Bondo myself. So we'll do a little bit of Bondo in some areas and get her cleaned up. But overall, I think that looks pretty good. Kept that look. Ooh, I need to fill that in with weld right there. Just a little bit right there and clean that up. But she still shakes a little bit, but it's a lot stiffer than it was. And then, of course, when we gusset that corner right there and put another one on the top and the side and a bunch more little triangle pieces up and around, I think it'll really tighten that up nice. So now I got to move to the front of these fenders. I'm going to have to turn this thing. This is a little tight. Not getting in there, but as you can see, that needs finished out. And this fender here actually needs flared out just a little bit. And I'm not sure how to do that. I could put a jack between the tire, the tread, and there and see if I can get to spread a little bit and make a spacer and weld it in. It's gonna be kind of tricky because I don't want to warp the rest of the fender because I don't have that gauge, the guide in here that tells us we are the right width for those LSW 1400s. So if I push on that, that'll pull this down. I don't want to do that. But like this side flares out the way it should. from the factory, that side was just tighter than this side. Found that out when we were doing this. So anyways, this one I don't have to modify at all. I just got to cut a triangle and weld it in. That side, yeah, that's gonna take some finessing. And while I've been sicker than a dog, turns out it was influenza A, is what we all had. Look at all that. Isn't that sweet? Look what he did there. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's been doing a killer job. Just trying to figure out where to put that, the valve body. I think that's where it's gonna go. We can, as long as this PTO clears it, I think we're good, but that's a good central spot for the lines to run up to the pumps and then back to all the remotes in the back. Just tidied up this fender here so you can see, got a nice piece welded in there, 1/2 inch, all around. Got clean enough to do like on everything else in this tractor, but that's good to have that done. Also went through and resealed these covers. Turned out we used the wrong gasket sealer. It was not for oil. So I took them all off, redid them, put it back on, leveled it. So we're gonna let that sit 24 hours and then I'm gonna pump this axle full of oil. That axle's got oil in it. We're putting synthetic 80, 140 in there. I've heard that's good stuff for these type of axles, so that's what we're putting in them. These things take roughly 13 gallons per axle. So you gotta put a good bucket in the center, maybe a little more, and a couple in the planetaries. Yeah, it's a lot of oil. But I should only have to do this once for the next like 5-6 years. Then we'll do it again. Whew, deep on pump. Let's take a quick pass around to show what's been going on. Cut the old ladder bracket off, gotta grind that. Finished fabricating up the corner, that fender. Was able to use the good old trusted high lift jack to press against the tire and the fender and push that out. Cut off some old brackets that they had, some old rod that they had welded to hook this tractor together when they were transporting it at one time somewhere, and anyways, didn't need that on there. And then, oh, the fun part. So, up here, this has been a little bit of a challenge. See this little box right here? This used to have dual air cleaners on it. And the previous, I don't know, someone at some point decided they didn't want those on there anymore, and they cut them off. Well, that's great and all, except for it was welded like no one's business on that no-slip, anti-slip decking. So there was one on this side too. So as you can see, I've already gone to town on it. I'm taking the plasma cutter and slicing it sideways down to the anti-slip metal, and then I come in with the air chisel and break all the slag off and then wire brush it. And there's just not much you can do. There's no way I'm gonna mimic this pattern. I'll just have to try to get it as flat as I can so it's not a toe kicker. It's just always gonna be there, so when you guys see that, you'll know what that was. The only other way to fix that would be to lay a whole new piece of decking on top of here. That stuff's not cheap. Yeah, that's just a lot of welding and work. So we're just gonna deal with the fact that there's gonna be a little box here. Now, the new air cleaner is actually gonna go right here, so that'll be covered up. That one though, you're gonna see that one. So I saved that one for last, so I got a little experience under my belt by doing this one. So let's start cutting that one and see how far we get. Not bad. Just got a little bit more. I gotta maybe grind on a little bit. You can see the tank's smoking. Bunch of old unburnt diesel fuel cooking underneath there. Good stuff. Now I've got those air cleaner brackets kind of cleaned up a little bit. I'm gonna start working on the battery box. Some of you had concerns, rightly so, that heat from the hydraulic oil here might cook the batteries. Well, our other bud has been designed like that since the 70s, and we've never had any issue with batteries, I guess, being cooked. But it does have a little bit of a cradle or shelf or a tray, whatever you want to call it, that lifts the batteries up 1/2 inch, 1 inch off the metal. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fab up some angle iron, just a little cradle to drop these 2 big batteries in, and that way there'll be a little bit of airflow there just so that heat transfer doesn't go directly to the batteries. The other thing is too, really the oil should only be about 150 degrees when we're setting down at this thing. So that's not an excessive amount of heat for the battery. Yeah, it's warm, it's hot, but it's not that hot. I mean, think about how many batteries are sitting inside your engine bay in your vehicle, having 150 to 180, 200 degree air blowing over it 24/7 from the radiator. So still, let's just lift it up a little bit. Not a bad thing to do. Just time and fabbing, and that's what we do. Got 1-inch angle iron here, got one stick of it, and it's not quite long enough to do the whole thing, so I'll have to do 2 separate cradles and then just put a joint in between. But with that said, I'm gonna use this, because why not? That's an angle iron cutter. Let's shear it. I think that'll work. Make another one of these and we'll find a way to bolt her down in there or weld it down in there or somehow get it down in there and it'll hold it. Sweet. Junk battery. It'll get turned into a core someday. For now, it's our mock battery. We decided to change the way the air cleaner is mounted to the frame of the tractor. Basically, we looked at another series, well, kind of a 2 series 1, Bud, and they just took a big old flat chunk of 1/2-inch iron like that, welded it to the tank, put a little gust on the side, and then bolted the whole air cleaner to the side. And it looked really clean. It looks nice. So that's what we're doing, because we've got a scrap piece of 1/2 inch just sitting there. So Leonard's been fabbing that up. We're about ready to clean up this tank, and we'll weld it down on. And then that will give us a spot for that air cleaner. And then from there, we can start figuring out exhaust, intake. It's gonna come around and out to the air cleaner. Exhaust out here, up and up the stack. So yeah, lots going on. But we're just whittling away at the things that need done before we can strip this thing down and sandblast everything out. Get it sandblasty clean and then paint it.
Spot on right there.
Looks like it's leaning like this, but I don't know if that's the bud leaning too. I think the bud's leaning that way a little bit.
Well, we measured it. We're going off of this frame here, which is straight.
Yeah, I think it's just the tires are
Check it again.
not inflated very well. But we just got word that the LSW 1400s are going to be shipped in a couple days. So we want to get as much done as we can to get ready for that, so we can get those on here, make sure they fit. Oh, I pray they fit. They better fit. And then if they fit, everything's good, and we got the rest of this done, we can tear it all down and roll this thing outside and get it on blocks and get the entire thing sandblasted and get it back in and get ready for paint. So we got things to do. We got the air cleaner mounted, got that solid, looks good. Now I've got to figure out how are we going to do the actual air snorkel, because and the exhaust. Typically with Big Bud, they did 2 different ways. They either had the air cleaner, had its own separate turbo 2 stacks that sat next to each other, and they were just separate from the exhaust system. Sometimes though, they combined them, so they had a big pipe that goes up that the exhaust and the muffler bolts to, but that pipe also acts as the intake type tube as well, with the turbo 2 filter on the top or screen. Or they have just a nice solid pipe up the center, exhaust bolts to one side, intake bolts to the other side. So the cleanest way is to combine the pipe and make it dual, not only as a post for the exhaust, but also for the intake to pull air through. This is the original This is not an intake. All it did was bolt the exhaust muffler right there. So we decided we're gonna go ahead and just combine them. So that's just like a 5-inch, 4-something inch heavy wall pipe. So we picked up a 7-inch heavy wall, 1/4-inch wall, 7-foot pipe. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna chop this off. We're gonna keep this rounded plate here that bolts to the fender because we need that. Cut this all up. I'm gonna put that 7-inch on there. We'll gusset it, get it all set up, and then that'll be the new post for the muffler. And then on the side we'll cut a hole, and there'll be a 7-inch 90-degree pipe off the side. That'll then go into the air cleaner over there. And then we'll also have to put a little teeny hole in the corner down somewhere for a drain because water is gonna get in the top of the air cleaner and go down there. So a little bit of air will pull from down there, but it's all pre-filter air. It's not post, so it doesn't matter if it pulls a little air down there compared to up there. Make sense? Let's get to cutting. Well, I was working on the Wilton bandsaw. This is our 7015 that we picked up. And you guys were like, you gotta get the coolant on that thing going. Run the coolant, you can't run it dry. And so I started looking into the coolant system on it. And you're right, there is a coolant. There's a tank down here with a pump. And it was all just plugged and rusted and everything. So I cleaned everything up. The motor still works, the pump still works. Put all new hoses on. The valves were all rusted shut. So I fixed those, that's flowing. Then these, the guides, the ports were all plugged. So I cleaned that up. So now I got the fluid moving, which is good. So you can see there's fluid here. So we're flowing now, it's going to recycling. That's awesome. So thanks for the tip, guys. We're gonna now have this thing running with coolant. And yes, I bought machining oil that's meant for machining and cooling, so we got that. But in the process, the bearings are all toast, or a bunch of them are. You see that one's all gone. The center bearing that's down inside there, you can see we're in the very, very middle, that one's completely gone. That one's about destroyed. So I started looking at bearings, and this is where it gets kind of funny. That's why I'm telling you the story is. So a lot of the websites you go to get parts for these, they're like between $6 and $10 a bearing. Well, I need 10 bearings because I'm gonna replace them all. So you're like $100 plus shipping. And as I was looking at a little more of the details on the bearings and the numbers, all of a sudden I realized, oh, it's the exact same thing as a skateboard bearing. It's the same numbers. So I ordered a 20 pack for $8. Bill here went in 3 days. 20 for 8 or 10 for 120. They look the exact same. Now, are they a knockoff bearing? They might be. But for 20 of them, I'll just swap them out. That's, what is that, like hardly a buck a bearing? Not even that. That's like, yeah, cheap. So we'll see what happens. If they're a failure, $8, I'll go buy the $120 set. But let's try what happens. You just never know. Skateboard wheel bearings, that's all it is. We don't need to cut too much, just a little bit. That's pretty good right there. Perfect.
Okay, measure the bottom with it flush.
Yeah, you look 11 and 5/8. It's really close. It needs to go this way a little bit. That's 11 3/4, but that moving back and forth. I mean, that's not bad right there.
So,
a little over 3. Pretty close, the same, yeah. Not sure where I put my hat, but I think we got her on. Pretty squared up with the tractor. A lot of that's got to get cut off. It's not going to be that tall. That's like a, yeah, coal chimney stack. No, we're going to cut off probably a good 1.5 feet of that, 2 feet of that. Tacked on some gussets from the old one. We might have to modify them, so they're just tacked on there for now. Left a little tiny weep hole right here because water is going to get inside here at some point. and it's got to come out. The issue is, as it comes out, it's going to make a nice rusty spot on the fender right here. We don't want that. So we're still thinking of ideas. We might put a little hole right there, or a hole, put like a 1/4-inch line or a 1/2-inch line and have it come over and drop over the side of the fender. And that way any water that gets inside that tube will run out, but eventually that'll rust solid and fill up with dirt and dust. Or we could poke a hole in the bottom, through the bottom of the fender in the wheel well, let the water drain through, but the problem is it's always so dusty under there where the tire's turning, and that's sucking air, that dust is gonna suck in a little bit of that hole and go in there, and then it might plug that hole too. So I don't know. We're overthinking it, but they've done it this way. It's just we're figuring it out. So we might actually, as we cut the opening, here's a 7-inch line. It's gonna come over and tie in right here. When we cut this out, we might weld a plate in the inside, so that way nothing can fall down to the bottom down there. And if any water got in there, we'd have to go back into the air cleaner. Our fear is if enough water gets in here, it'll freeze and expand and bust the bottom out. So that's just kind of the dilemma we're dealing with. Not big, we'll figure it out. But anyways, Leg Arms is working on the brackets. They're gonna mount weld to this. They're gonna hold the muffler on. So he's cutting those up right now. We got a bunch of parts coming to finish out the tubing for the intake for the air box, as well as all the rubber couplers. They're gonna connect everything together, as well as the turbo to the exhaust here, the chrome stack. We'll have a nice chrome stack. It's not gonna be real tall, but it'll look nice. So that's where we're at.